Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to get started. If you have a friend who you know is meant to join us, be a good friend and remind them. I love that this is a community of like-minded people coming together. So I am Jessica Ortner. I'm a New York Times bestselling author and also the co-creator of the Tapping Solution app, as well as a busy mom. I know that many of you are also incredibly busy, and I really value your time, and I just applaud you for showing up today. So I want to start off with some clear intentions because I want to make sure that this time together is really valuable. So today, what you're going to discover is how you can take your understanding of EFT tapping to a whole new level. You're going to learn how EFT tapping can be a great new career choice, how you can both help yourself and have the satisfaction that comes with helping others, how you can work from home, and what I think is most important is being able to have that work-life balance. I really encourage you to stay until the very end because we have a special surprise, a great bonus, which is the brain program audio. This is an incredible technique that combines tapping and meditation, and it's yours for free just for showing up today. So today we are going to speak to someone who I admire so much, and that is Dawson Church. I met Dawson Church a long time ago. Back in 2008, my brother Nick and I were filming a documentary called The Tapping Solution, and we reached out to Dawson to begin to understand more about the science and research around tapping, and he really opened our eyes. I think the most extraordinary thing about knowing Dawson since 2008 is seeing just how much he has done since then, all of the research and the impact it's had on the entire community and really the world. So let me tell you a little bit more about Dawson. So Dawson is the founder of the National Institute of Integrative Healthcare, or NIIH, and is the author of the best-selling books Genie in Your Genes and Bliss Brain. Dawson has shared the stage with some truly transformational leaders like Joe Dispenza, Marianne Williamson, Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield. And the NIIH's largest program is the Veterans Stress Project. It blows me away every time I hear more about it. With this program, he has been able to help over 21,000 veterans with PTSD. And it's what I love about Dawson. He's truly driven to help people. He has been the primary investigator in over 20 scientific studies. That's a lot when it comes to energy psychology and EFT. And twice he has been invited to testify before US congressional committees. He is the CEO of EFT Universe. He manages the largest EFT training and certification organization in the world, training over 5,000 practitioners over the last few years. And I still have more. I have more to share about Dawson because he's truly impressive. Dawson's trainings have really set such a high standard that EFT training is accredited for continued medical education for doctors through the American Medical Association, psychologists through the American Psychological Association, and nurses through the American Nurses Credentialing Commission. So he's played really a central role in bringing energy therapies into primary care settings like the Veterans Administration and the Kaiser healthcare system. So for more than 10 years, our company, me and my brothers, the Tapping Solution, we have been the biggest donors to Dawson's nonprofit. And it's really because we believe in his work and we have been able to see just the transformation, just the difference that these studies have made, and his ability to train people in a way that really spreads this powerful technique and helps so many people all around the world. So I know that was a lot. So without any further ado, Dawson, welcome.
Oh, so funny, Jessica. I was just picturing us in 2008 meeting each other, working on the Tapping Solution movie. And could you have ever imagined that 10, 15 years later, we'd be here reading off that list of things that's happened, like EFT has been accepted by the Veterans Administration. It's been taught in Kaiser Permanente and hospital systems. And, you know, all this has happened. And back then we had no idea of how far it would go. But I'm so grateful to be part of this huge and amazing community with you through the Tapping World Summit, through the Tapping Solution movie, through your books, through Nick's books. Now tapping is everywhere. We'll literally sometimes be in a restaurant and we'll overhear people talking about tapping, or a bus stop and people talking about tapping. Tapping is just everywhere. And I'm just so grateful we have the chance to collaborate, work together on the nonprofit side, on the training side, really spread this amazing message throughout the world that you don't have to suffer from all the things that have been holding you back. So thank you for what you do, how we collaborate together so joyfully and deliciously every year. And who knows what we'll be saying to each other 10 years from now.
Well, I almost lost my breath reading this bio. So 10 years from now, it's going to be a lot longer, I have no doubt. So thank you so much again for being with us. And for those who are watching, let's make this interactive. Please, as we're having this conversation, Dawson and I, we want you to feel like you're part of this conversation, you're part of this family. So if you have any questions, just write them in the chat below, and we're going to do our best to get to them. If we can't get to them right away, we definitely will get to them down the line. So Dawson, there's so much I want to talk about, but let's start with the research and this transformation that we're seeing. Tapping was often in the beginning a bit misunderstood, I think. It wasn't really until the science and research came about that people paused and began to take a serious look at how incredibly effective this is. And a big part has been the research that you have done. Can you tell us a bit about the research and what has come from it?
Yeah, well, when I first got into tapping around 2001, there was no research whatsoever, not a single scientific study. And the proponents of tapping said, well, we don't need scientific studies. You tap, you feel different. It's evident that your body has changed, your mind has changed, your beliefs have changed, your stress level has changed. And if they were therapists or coaches, they'd say, I can see my clients changing. So why do we have to go through all the trouble and expense and work and sweat of getting trials published in peer-reviewed journals? And the answer is that that is what gives you credibility. If I were to tell you that, say you went to go see your dentist said, you know, this is a great new technique I want to use to drill into your tooth and fix this cavity. And you said, well, you know, is there research backing it up? And he says, well, there isn't really, but you know, I read a story on the internet. You'd run screaming out the door and find another dentist. So stories are great, anecdotes are great, but science demands evidence. If I'm an ethical doctor, if I'm an ethical therapist, if I'm an ethical coach, I want to use evidence-based techniques. Just like, you know, if you're taking a pill, you want something that you know works. So that's why science has been so important. Another reason is that it ensures consistency. And one of the basic recipe in EFT is a good example. It's called the basic recipe. Just like baking a cake, if you add certain ingredients, flour and sugar and water in the right proportions, then you know your cake's likely to turn out. Same thing if you take a pill. If I take an aspirin, I want to know that the dosage of aspirin in that tablet is exactly right. If there are 13 different ingredients in the pill, I want to know that all of the combinations and the ratios are correct. So if you have a consistent method, you get consistent results. And when I first got into EFT, results were wildly inconsistent. We had what we called 1-minute wonders, and people would get over phobia, get over an addiction like in a session. Other times people slunged around with EFT for years sometimes, didn't make very much progress. Now, with consistency, we know that if you follow the formula, EFT is going to work. And the remarkable thing is that EFT is not, the basic method hasn't changed a lot over the years. We now know that this is a consistent method. If you apply it consistently, it just works. And so there are variants. We're always discovering new things. Science is always giving us fresh insights. But we know now we can go and present this to a group of psychiatrists or exercise physiologists or life coaches. And if they apply that technique consistently, we know that it'll work. And then the third thing is that EFT has needed, for acceptance in the medical mainstream, it's needed high quality training. And it's funny, now we just say that very glibly, oh, our continuing medical education credits are accepted for doctors by the American Medical Association, American Psychological Association. But Jessica, that is a profound dividing line. When you have a consistent training and is of such high quality that is accepted by these major healing guilds, that means you've gone from the periphery, from the fringe, into the mainstream. And that's where you need consistently high training. We were the very first organization to have those high standards, just time after time after time. Our formula was the same: workshop after workshop after workshop, certification after certification candidate. And so that meant that we had that consistent high quality training. And that was the third magic ingredient. Once we had the science behind us, the research, once we had a consistent method, we call it Clinical EFT. It's a highly structured, very defined method. And we were training people in this method. At that point, we were able to do remarkable things like get EFT approved by the Veterans Administration as a generally safe therapy. All of those steps had to come before that. And then finally, we were able to get it to large numbers of people. So that's made all the difference. And it was hard. We had to raise a lot of money. We had to get a lot of teams together. We had to go through the whole process of getting validated, but it was worth it. Now we're reaching millions of people we couldn't have reached with just stories.
Yes. And I'm going to keep going back to this, but I just keep imagining the ripple effect, right? It's like you're training one person, but that person is impacting hundreds of people. So it's really, I'm so grateful to be able to share this with everybody. I want to take a moment to hear more about the Stress Project.
Yeah, the Stress Project is really a remarkable thing. When we began the Stress Project in 2008, we initially, the first year, we were trying to find a way of getting EFT to people with PTSD. And I'm getting chills as I tell you this, Jessica, because when you've seen a veteran, for example, who's been having flashbacks for 40 years since Vietnam, and every night that person wakes up at 4 a.m. There was one veteran who woke up every night at 4 a.m. And when we began tapping with him and doing the first sessions with him, we traced it back to a time when he first arrived in Vietnam, got over there on the ship and arrived there. And the very first night he was there was a mortar attack on his base at 4 a.m. Ever since then, his body and his brain and his ingrained memory is that 4 a.m. is a time of danger. Back then in 1969, he hid under his bed. Wasn't much good, but was the best he could do. So now it's encoded in his brain, and he has a cortisol spike, his stress hormones spike every single night, every single morning at 4 a.m. and wake him up. So you witness people like this, and then you hear the stories of them being treated by an EFT therapist or getting coaching session from a coach. And suddenly, like one veteran came in for his second session, and he said to his therapist, I'm almost in tears as I say this. It means so much to me that these people experience this. And he said to his therapist on his second session, he said, Linda, after the first session, I got my first full night's sleep since Vietnam. So I am just passionate about getting this to people who are suffering like that. And, we know them in Rwanda. We know them after these school shootings. We know them when they come back from war and they're shattered. How do we help these people put their lives back together? We can, and they have very different lives as a result. So that's the Stress Project. And as you know, it just fires us up so much to get this to those people who would otherwise keep on suffering till the day they died.
And there's so many stories, just really, I mean, that's one out of thousands. And I'm sure that people who are watching this might have their own stories as well of using tapping. If you have your own story, share with us. Let us know. Did you have a breakthrough with tapping, or how do these stories make you feel? Dawson, I have to say, on a personal level, when it comes to someone who's teaching this work, I not only care about the work that they're teaching, but I really do care about the person behind the work. I think sometimes you can have someone doing great work, but if they're not in a good place in their own life, it just lacks integrity, right? And I think one of the things I love about you is over the last 10 years, I've gotten to know you personally, and to see that, I mean, you have an infectious laugh that you're famous for, but besides that, you truly are one of the happiest people I know. And you've been so congruent with this work. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I know it's kind of like an awkward question, but I just think it's important to know how this has changed your life, not just the lives that you're changing.
Yeah, and it's true. You read off that list of accomplishments earlier from my bio, and those are just things you do, and they're offshoots of who you are. And so, who are you, and how do you feel, and how do you approach life? How do you? I remember when I was a little boy, like 4 or 5 years old, my father was a minister, and I'd watch these members of the clergy, and they'd be so inspiring on Sunday from the pulpit, and then Monday morning they'd be swearing at their wife and kicking their dog, and I thought, no, 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 there's something really wrong with this picture. So David Feinstein and I, he's Donna Eden's husband, and they have an ethics program. We put that in place to really make sure that people were, as they learn these techniques, learning to apply them in their own lives and walk their talk. And for me, it was born out of real unhappiness. I wound up being a suicidal teenager. I remember being 12, 13 years old, and all I wanted to do was not be here. I just, couldn't bear the thought of another year on the planet. And I was toxically depressed. I was so miserable. In my book, Bliss Brain, I tell the story about being 15 years old, being with a group of people in a hotel in the lobby, and I walked past a full-length mirror. I just stared at myself in the mirror, and I had these long blue bell-bottom trousers, jeans on, and this bag of books slung over my shoulder. I never went anywhere. There were no laptops then, so I had to always have like 8 books in a bag over my shoulder so I could read. I looked at my own face in the mirror of that hotel, and this thought just popped into my mind. The thought was, those are the saddest eyes I've ever seen. And I realized, wow, you are so screwed up as a human being. I mean, how do you ever escape the depression and anxiety and stress you just live under every day? And so I went to live on a spiritual community. I learned the perennial philosophy that underlies all the religions. I learned energy healing, learned meditation, and got a little bit happier, but incrementally. And I spent decades in psychotherapy, learning psychology, trying to free myself from that burden of stress. And I spent 15 years getting screwed up, double that time, 30 years trying to fix myself in the ashram and spirituality and psychology and all the stuff. And then I discovered EFT and energy therapies. And I'm going to tell you, Jessica, I was 45 years old when I discovered that, and I began to meditate every day, and I began to tap. My life changed radically in just a few months. My money changed. My whole career went off in a different direction, a much more fulfilling direction. My relationships changed. My relationships with my children changed dramatically. And I have the happiest kids you can imagine. I mean, I just have these deep, rich relationships with my adult children and my grandchildren. It's just wonderful to live a life that is so fulfilling, but it certainly didn't start out that way. And so my passion is to share this with people. I was walking the labyrinth. I do a retreat every New Year's Eve, and a couple of years back, I was walking the labyrinth at New Year's Eve, and just kind of in the state of communion with the universe. And I said, "Universe, give me a message for the next part of my life." I stood there at the center of the labyrinth, and I heard this voice saying, "Dawson, I've given you the gift of happiness. Now go give it to everybody else." So I do every day, through tapping and meditation, just that learning to give the gift of happiness. And so I want, if you're listening now, I want you to know that research shows you can be dramatically happier than you are today. The average increase in happiness in some of our studies is more than double. So people need to know that those burdens of depression, anxiety, stress don't have to weigh you down. You can very, very quickly release them, just like those Vietnam veterans did, and then you can claim the happy life you were meant to be.
Mm-hmm. I resonate so much to your story. And what I think is so extraordinary about you is that you have this passion and this connection, this spirituality, but then you're the brain guy. You're get the research,
Yeah.
get the data, get the facts. It's very unique to really have a foot in both those worlds, such a steady foot in both those worlds. So we know, I mean, most of us here know that tapping works. We probably had our own experience. Within the Tapping Solution app, you have done a study that shows that it is effective. And so if someone can use tapping in an app and have a breakthrough, why the training?
Yeah, why get trained? And that's one thing that people ask, is because they go use the app. Those tracks in the app are under 10 minutes long, and our massive study of over 200,000 people in the app showed that people have a dramatic drop in stress and anxiety. So why do you need training? Or people go and listen to the summit and they tap along with the tapping scripts we give them at the end of each session, and they tap and they feel much better after that. So they go to EFT Universe, or they go to our YouTube channel, or they go to your Facebook page and they tap and they feel better. So if you can feel better just tapping yourself, why bother getting trained and certified? And the answer is that you can get a chunk of the benefit of EFT by tapping alone. But when you know all of the 48 clinical EFT techniques, you can get far more benefit and far wider range of benefits. There are 48 clinical EFT techniques that we define in the EFT manual and in our training program. If you tap along with us for example, during the summit, we're using the first 9 of those techniques. And most people know the basic recipe, the setup statement, the reminder phrase, tapping on the point. They may know the 9 gamut, but that's just the first 9 techniques. There are 38 other techniques. And when you're stuck, when you have persistent patterns of self-sabotage, when you have prenatal trauma or adult trauma, single incident trauma from your adulthood, when you have a persistent pattern of not succeeding at relationships, at money, at work, at weight, at whatever it is that you're not dealing with well, when you have a health problem that never quite goes away, then you need to know those other 38 techniques. They can really budge those long-term problems. So simple tapping, simple problems, it's great. We recommend it. I teach it. We spread the word as widely as possible. But to really get the full benefit of EFT, you need to know all 48 clinical EFT techniques. And one of the cool things about our training and certification is that many people arrive at it knowing a little bit about tapping, those first 9 techniques. Some people start our training and they've spent years, some of them more than 10 years, as practitioners. And Jessica, what's really fun is that those practitioners, when they take the training, say things like, wow, I thought I knew EFT. Cami O'Donnell is one of them. I have a quote over here from her. She says, I've been doing EFT for 8 years and teaching classes of my own. Yet the EFT Universe training took me to a whole new level of insight into the potential of this healing tool. So here is somebody who's been offering it. She has a doctorate degree. She's been offering, she's an expert tapper, and yet she takes the training and she realizes she's only had about 20% of the whole picture of what training can unlock for her and for her clients. It's exciting to then apply tapping and then see these like long-standing issues you never thought would budge in your life start to change. And then, of course, your full potential is unlocked. So that's why the training is so valuable.
Amazing, amazing. And for, again, those who are watching, let us know in the chat if you've had any aha moments so far. And as you reflect on what is possible, what would you want to transform? What would make this beneficial for you? What do you want to overcome? Let us know below. So Dawson, tapping takes us much deeper. Training takes us much deeper into EFT. And we're seeing that this certification is so much more than the basics, and you're really creating such an incredibly solid foundation. Can you tell us more about the certification?
Yeah, so certification is for people who want to use EFT with other people. And using EFT for yourself is really valuable. And then you want to share it with people. Like I began to tap on my kids as soon as I learned EFT. And I think my kids are actually a lot better off as a result of having had tapping from fairly early ages. And so you want to start learn to use EFT with other people as well. May just be with your wife or your husband or your partner or your parents. There's a wonderful story in it really touches my heart in the EFT manual. And the manual is all the science. The EFT manual is also stories. One of these was about a woman whose mother has Alzheimer's. And EFT can't do miracles like cure Alzheimer's. But what she found is that her mother became much less anxious as she tapped with her. And so here she was using EFT with her mother with Alzheimer's. And her mother would worry because her brother, who lived in the same town, would visit every day. And this time, at this moment, her brother was away on a trip. So she was saying to her daughter, well, where's my son? And she was getting very, very confused and anxious about that. Then she tapped with her mother on her anxiety. And then her mother began to say, oh, yeah, I know, he's on a trip. So her mother would remember that he was on a trip then, and the anxiety went away. So when you want to use EFT with people in your family, it's useful. You may want to use EFT with people at work. Often you're in a work situation and there's tension or things aren't going well. Tap and you'll see that change. And then, of course, you may want to use EFT as a profession. And we have lots of interviews on our website with people who've been through the training, been through certification. Some of them are using EFT part-time. So they've learned EFT, they have done the certification, they've got qualified, they've graduated from the program, and now maybe they still have their 9-to-5 job. One woman, for example, Deb Elkington, I talked about her a little bit earlier in one of our other programs. And Deb her whole career was as a nurse with the VA, but she learned tapping while she was doing that, and then began to tap with people outside of that and having the beginnings of a practice. For some of those people, their practice that began as a small little side thing, 2 hours a day, now it's their whole lives. Another one of our graduates, Tina Tran, was in a really super high pressure corporate job, wasn't working for her marriage, was not working for her as a parent with children, and she knew she had to get out of it. And she learned tapping, went through the training, went through the certification program, and she discovered work-life balance. Because now she says, it does not work for me to have anything going on in my life except my family before 11 a.m. So the first time she sees a client is 11 a.m. Now she works quite late because she works with people in different parts of the world, but she now is able to establish that work-life balance, do as many hours as she wants, and by the way, make a really good living doing it, and then have time for her husband, have time for her kids. So the benefit of certification is you learn to use EFT systematically, not just for yourself, but with people around you, eventually with clients, and you gain confidence as you do that. As you use all 48 clinical EFT techniques, that people will get better, they'll get better quickly, they'll tell their friends, they'll come to you. One of the other cool things that we have on video from some of our graduates talking about is how, like one woman, Carolina, says, I've been meaning to do a website because, I'm a practitioner, I should have a website. But I've had so many clients as I've gone through certification coming to me spontaneously, I haven't had time to build one. She doesn't have to market herself because the work is so good. It's marketing her services to others for her. And so that's what's happening. That's the value of not only becoming happier and healthier yourself, but offering it to other people and then having either a part-time job or a satisfying lifetime career.
Dawson, what is the typical income of a practitioner?
I'll tell you a funny story about that. And I told you earlier that the science was important and the stories are also important. But I tapped with this one female practitioner, and it was right around the time you were making the movie. So it was around 2008. And she was really fearful. And so I was tapping along with her as her friend at the time because she was afraid, and her rates back then were $60 an hour. That's what she charged. And she had a pretty lively practice. She was making a living in a big city on the West Coast. And so, but she said, Dawson, I'm so fearful. If I raise my rates from $60 an hour to $75 an hour, I'm going to lose all my clients. No one wanted to work with me anymore. It's $75 an hour. So Jessica, a couple of years ago, I went on her website and took a look at her website and her rates. She is now charging $350 an hour and has a full practice and waiting list. Now, again, that's more than a decade later, so I'm not saying she did that in a year, but many of our practitioners their starting amount they're charging people is $100 an hour. Some are more, some are starting at $150 an hour, and they go from there. Many of them have packages where a client, say, pays for a series of sessions. So maybe the client's paying $3,000 or $5,000. And we used to focus very much on situational EFT, 1 session, 2 sessions, 3 sessions. But now we're focusing on us actually, as well as those situational EFT things, also having session packages that cost several $1,000s. So think in terms of graduating and having that level of $100 an hour to start with, and then working your way up as your skills improve from there.
Dawson, honestly, like I tap with people. Obviously, I have an app. My life is tapping, but I pay someone else to tap with them because it is so beneficial to have someone else that can support you through something, because we're always growing and we're always evolving. So I love the structure of packages, and it's something that I value a lot. So I'm so happy that you're bringing light to that. Let's talk about the structure of the program. How long does it take?
It takes a year. We like people to devote a year to it. And then within that year, we like you to spend about 4 hours a week on the material. And so that means you will be setting aside a time. We recommend a structured time. And you will say, designate your time as maybe like when I was getting certified many, many years ago, it was 4 hours every Saturday. I had 8 to 12 blocked out every single Saturday to do my certification classes. So we like to have a regular time. And then we know if you do that 4 hours, you'll easily do it in a year. I talked to a practitioner this last week. She said, I'll be finished in 6 months. She's putting more time into it, and she really wants to finish quickly. So you can finish it in less than a year, 6 months if you want to. Figure out a year without breaking a sweat. And then we give you a year to do it. And then if you want to take an extra 6 months, you get a free extension. You can get a free extension to do an extra 6 months and then do 18 months. So think of a year as the average, 6 months if you really go for it, and then 18 months on the outside.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So what are some of the outstanding, actually, no, this is, okay, I can't wait to talk about this. Let's talk about mentorship, unless I'm missing anything before we jump into mentorship, but I'd love to hear more about that because I think that's one of the best parts of this program.
Mentorship is worth its weight in gold. Here you have trained, certified practitioners, trainers, people who've been doing EFT a long time, who are beyond expert. They are so good. And they are actually interacting with you face to face. You're doing group work with them. You're doing one-to-ones with them. They're reading your cases, analyzing them, and giving you feedback on how to improve as a practitioner. It is priceless. And so I watch people initially go from really struggling practitioners. They don't know what to do. They aren't sure of themselves. And then finally, after working with a mentor, they're confident. And so our goal is to graduate you knowing these skills, and mentorship is a cornerstone of the certification program. So it's really important that you have mentorship, that you understand mentorship, that you take full advantage of mentorship. We also have group calls. We have question and answer calls. These are really amazing. These are with a mentor. Get together in a small group and you'll talk about difficult cases. What do I do with this client who has a persistent problem with self-sabotage? What do I do with this client who has cancer? What do I do with this client who has an autoimmune disease? What do we do with people? And of course, there are always then members of your group who say, well, I worked with someone like that, and here's what I did. And your mentor says, well, what approach might you take to doing that? Would you work early in their lives? Would you work on their current worries? And you have a really interesting symposium where you discuss difficult cases. So that's part of mentorship. You're also doing the whole certification program in what's called a learning management system, or LMS. And that is a state-of-the-art college type software package. It's a hugely complicated thing, but it's very simple to use. It's like one of those products that has a lot going on under the hood, but you just get in, turn the key, and drive. It's super easy to use, but underneath, it's this really beautiful, amazing set of tools that allows you to move through the course really easily. The other thing you get, which is priceless, is a community. And that community of people in the certification program is just packed with activity. People are posting every day. They're sharing their successes. They're sharing their challenges. They're sharing their insights. They're sharing resources. And occasionally they're sharing stories like one woman, her mom got sick and it was really sad. She had a lot of sorrow around that. So of course, all the other students clustered around and tapped with her. And then she needed more time to complete the program. So she got all the support, more time, extra tapping sessions. All of this happened within this loving, supportive community. That community is magic. And Jessica, one of the funny things is that theoretically, you get access to the community while you're getting certified. And then, you get certified after a year and you're supposed to go away, and nobody does. People stay in that community for years afterwards because it's just such a warm, loving group of people. So that's one of the things that is supportive. So there's mentorship, there are Q&A courses, classes, there are webinars, there is the learning management system, and all of this combines to give you a really brilliant state-of-the-art learning experience.
Yes. I mean, just the learning experience itself is excellent. The program is excellent. What makes it phenomenal is the mentorship and community, which you don't really get anywhere else. And I do feel like that community is so important because we are faced with things that can be very specific to the client that we're working with that we might not be able to read in a book. So I'm so impressed, Dawson, that you've created that aspect of the program. And I just think it's essential. If someone's listening and they're like, okay, where, when do I start? How do I start this? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so we offer 2 classes a year. Enrollment's open for 2 weeks each time. And that's so that we can close enrollment. We have an inauguration party. We have parties, by the way, like we have these virtual parties. And when we can, we get together and do them in person as well. And so the training can be done all virtual, or you can do it a part of it in person if you want to go to a live class. But we close it after 2 weeks so we can do the inauguration party and then start off as a group. So you'll get to know the people in your cohort going through. Really important that you have these supportive people. You'll do the classes with them. You'll get to know them as you do the training. And so twice a year, for 2 weeks, it's open. And if you want to get certified and you're between those 2 enrollment periods, you just give us your name. We notify you when the next one is. And there are also things you can do in the meantime. There are virtual classes you can take that'll count towards certification. So twice a year, and then you go through it in a group, and then you graduate in roughly a year's time period.
That's amazing. Dawson, any other final thoughts?
Well, as far as the costs and other questions, we have a sliding scale of what you pay for certification based on your previous experience. Like if you've been certified by another organization, that work will count. If you've taken other workshops, that work might count. If you talk to an admissions advisor, they will then give you exactly what your cost will be. The cost is modest, either at the top or end of the range or the low end of the range. There are also payment plans available. So the next step is to talk to an admissions advisor after you've read the enrollment page and know what questions you might have left over. There's also a frequently asked questions section at the bottom of the page. Read that because it answers most of the questions you might have. But what we find about this, Jessica, is that if you're meant to do this, you will know it. Like I ask people when they show up at a live workshop and I'm there with them in the room, I say, why did you choose to get certified in EFT? Why did you choose this path? And they said, my heart spoke to me. I heard you talking about this. I met a mentor. I watched a YouTube video, and my heart told me this was my destiny. And that's what's happening for people more and more and more. They're stuck in careers they know are never going to be satisfying, never going to witness that magic of watching, say, a teenager who's been cutting herself and been dealing with anorexia or bulimia, and suddenly you do some work with her and that burden is lifted from her, her behavior changes, she gets her life back. Or you're with that spouse of a veteran and they tap together with their partner and suddenly all those layers melt away, all those layers of trauma melt away, and like they get their marriage back and their family back. And you're doing this every day, and there is nothing more satisfying than this being your career. My wife says to me sometimes, Dawson, you work all the time. And I just absolutely love what I'm doing. I'm just passionate about what I do. I actually take a lot of time off. I take actually 2 or 3 months off in the winter to go on a long retreat. I take a couple of months off during the year. But the rest of the time, I'm like a child at play. And you watch these transformations in people's lives, and it is so fulfilling. So when you talk to an admissions advisor, or when you go on the web page, the enrollment page, you'll see we're just laying all this out for you. And once you've read that information or talk to an admissions advisor, either you'll say, this isn't for me, or you'll say, wow, where do I sign up and when? You'll know it's for you. And again, we're really focused on you not just having the experience, not just getting good at this, but having a career at the other end. We have Tapping Place where you can go and work with clients one-on-one after you graduate. We have a practitioner listing that gets about 10,000 visits a month from people who are just going there wanting a practitioner. So in all kinds of ways, we support you in having a successful practice after you graduate. So we want to see, Jessica, huge numbers of practitioners graduating, available to all these people who are suffering. And we know that as each person who graduates will work with maybe 500 people in the next year. Maybe over time, many of our practitioners are doing online courses. They can be reaching 5,000 or 50,000 people a year. We're reaching millions of people a year through this program. Every one of those precious people is a person whose life would have been enmeshed in trauma and suffering if they hadn't discovered EFT, and if that practitioner hadn't been available to them, and suddenly those problems are gone and they have a whole new future. So I love this work. I love training people. I love having the impact we have. And more and more and more, we're in institutions. We've done a whole series of trainings for the Cleveland Clinic. We've done trainings in Johns Hopkins. I've done grand rounds with psychiatrists at Fort Hood. I've done the same thing in Kaiser Permanente. Increasingly, we're seeing this now in these primary care locations where people so need the benefit of stress reduction and EFT. So we're just at the beginning of this massive wave of transformation. And through the summit, through the app, through training, through Tapping Place, through all of these ways, we are getting this healing message to a whole planet of people who desperately needs to know you don't have to suffer. You don't have to be that 15-year-old looking at yourself in the mirror saying, those are the saddest eyes I've ever seen. You don't have to stay that way. You can become a happy person. You can claim your full potential. And that really is the birthright of every person on earth. And that's why I know you do what you do. I do what I do, why we write books and have summits and have programs. That's really the big global message we're spreading as part of this magnificent community of healing. So again, your heart will tell you loud and clear if this is for you. And the next step is to click that enroll page, ask your questions, talk to an admissions advisor, and then take the next step.
Dawson, I am so grateful to you. I'm so grateful to all the work that you're doing. And I'm grateful for, again, the ripple effect, the people who are going to follow their heart. And I think we can't in this moment comprehend the impact it's going to have on this world. So I thank you for your passion, and I thank you for spending time with us today. I really appreciate it.
I'll see you in 10 years, Jessica.
Yeah, hopefully before.
And we'll see how the world's changed then. I bet it'll have changed in really wonderful ways as a result of this tool. I look forward to collaborating with you more. And I'm so grateful to everyone who's joined us. And I am just thrilled we are part of this great community of healing that is helping us as well as helping other people. So we will keep on spreading that word and that healing message. We'll keep on tapping ourselves. And again, we don't know what the future will bring, but I know the world will be a much better place in 10 years as a result of the work we've all been doing. So I'm thrilled to see what that world will be and the kind of world that my grandkids are going to inherit.
Thank you, Dawson.
Bless you. Thank you.